Namaste, friends. Welcome to one more session of the Global Festival of Oneness, organized by Advaita Academy on the life and works of Adi Shankara. Let us start with a prayer. Sada Shiva Samarambham, Shankaracharya Madhyamam, Asmadacharya Paryantam, Vande Guru Paramparam. Adi Shankara's teachings on Advaita Vedanta are universal and appeal to all seekers, irrespective of race and gender. The proof of that is in the fact that we have so many non-Indians pursuing this knowledge. Our speaker today is one such seeker and teacher. We are very pleased to have with us Jonas Masetti, who is going to speak on the topic, how to teach Advaita Vedanta outside India. Let me give a brief introduction on the speaker. Jonas Ji is, or Vishwanatha as he's called, is a Vedanta Acharya and disciple of Swami Dayananda Saraswati. He teaches Vedanta, Sanskrit, mantras, and Vedic culture mainly in Brazil, where he is currently based. His work takes place at Vishwavidya Institute in Petropolis near Rio de Janeiro, and he has reached a great audience of students by teaching online classes, organizing retreats, and publishing books on yoga and Vedanta in Portuguese and English. His accomplishments were acknowledged by the Indian government through the Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi, who has recognized Jonas Ji as an ambassador of the Vedic culture in Brazil. Welcome, Jonas Ji, and we are very pleased to have you with us. Please go ahead.
Namaste. It's an honor to be here. So let's start with a prayer. Om Shri Guru Pyo Namaha Hari Om Sada Shiva Samarambham Shankara Charya Madhyamam Asmadacharya Paryantam Vande Guru Paramparam Shri Jagan Mataram Devim Stitadhi Padmakasanam Hridaya Sagaratitam Gomatim Pranatosmyaham Om. Before leaving the ashram, all the students of the 3-year course I was in met Puja Swami Dayananda Saraswati, our guru, and we had a talk about what we are going to do after that. So each one has a different destiny, a different mission, we can say like that, a dharma. And I was talking to him and I told him I wanted to take this culture back to my country because I was sure many people would benefit from that. And he said, yes, in Brazil, there's a lot of people that will be interested in studying Vedanta. But understand that when you are speaking to them, you have to speak their own language. Vedanta concepts, ideas has to be taken to their culture and their understanding. And if you present to them as a pursuit of life, they will go for it. And instead of giving a religious, let's say, shell on for the whole knowledge, give them a meditative shell. Teach them meditation and other practice that can give them an immediate result in daily life, and naturally they will come towards Vedanta and the self-knowledge that's the heart of all this process. And I heard attentively all that, although I could not really believe that many people would be interested in studying. I was more like, okay, there will be a couple of students and maybe I can manage my life, or I will have a second job and do that, you know. And my formation, I'm a mechanical engineer. I had a very successful company in Brazil before leaving to India. So I was pretty confident that I was going to survive no matter what. And when I arrived in Brazil, I had maybe 3 or 4 students that we were studying in an old house of my family. And these people were studying Vedanta for many years with Gloria G, my teacher in Brazil, also another teacher that I had. She's still teaching here. And anyway, they already have gone to India, and I said, well, that's it. And then I started advertising my classes and tell people that I was going to teach. And only 5 people, 10 people gathered around. And mostly people that knew what Vedanta is. And then I almost forgot the words of Puja Swamiji, and I was like trying my best to do whatever we were supposed to do teaching. But then something very interesting came. That is, I started to think about that whatever works in India, not necessarily will work in Brazil or in the West. And actually, all the great masters like Vivekananda and all the others that came here to the West, they had to do many different sort of things to make this tradition appear. And yoga is already known to everybody. Ayurveda is becoming known, it's not completely known. But astrology is completely known. Everybody here knows what astrology is, not knowing that astrology is part of the Vedas. So I said, this is a good hook. So I changed the way I was speaking, and instead of presenting myself as a Vedanta teacher that's going to teach something new that nobody knows, I was presenting myself as being a teacher of the philosophy of yoga, because people could understand the nature of what, although Vedanta is not a philosophy, but anyway, I could present myself like that. And also that this Vedas tradition, that Vedic tradition, was what was behind astrology. And then I took some books like Brihat Parashara Horashastra and other that have many ideas that people know, and then show them that they know what are in the Vedas somehow, because our culture somehow has it, you know. And this starts to make people approach, and basically because of yoga and wanting to live a good life, they will like to hear the teachings. And then I just remember that Puja Swamiji, when he would teach, his focus was not like Atma Gnana in the first place. Although you are in ashram, then that's okay. But if he was going for like a public lecture, he would say like Vedanta for management, you know, something that does not make any sense. But anyway, he's the master and he's doing that. So it has a purpose, you know. So Vedanta for like helping a child to grow, Vedanta for this. So it's like mixing Vedanta with subjects that people are naturally interested in was something clever to do. So I took the idea of emotions, because emotions is something that in the West is in high. So everybody talks about emotion, does therapy and all that. And so Vedanta and emotions. And we know that psychotherapy has no solution, you know, because there's no end for it. But at the same time, As Puja Swamiji would say, Vedanta has no problem. So it's a good mix to talk about emotions and then to present them another perspective where you don't need your mind to be perfect. You just need to be a simple, humble person and live happily. And these ideas start to connect. And also I started to understand that we had many things here in the West that maybe have come from the Vedic tradition, but we cannot trace it, but they say basically the same. So when we connect what we have here with what is there and they are telling the same thing, then we have a very nice bridge because we can go further. When you have a tradition, you can go further than when you are alone by yourself with a book. So I would, for example, give a lecture on how to have a stable and happy relationship, you know. And this one was of like my biggest lectures I would give like 10, 20 times. Everybody wants to know about relationships. And in the end, to have a good relationship, you have to be happy, and happiness has nothing to do with a relationship. So you need Vedanta for that. And then let's explain what Vedanta is. And let's understand that a person with self-knowledge can have a better relationship than a person without self-knowledge. So it was a matter of time. Many lecture was being given, people were coming. In the beginning, there were only like 2 or 3 people in the lecture, and that's true. One day I went to a place, only like 2 people, you know, and I was there giving the same lecture. And after like 1 or 2 years doing that, basically every week I was giving lectures, then I start to have like 30 and 40 people. And suddenly a very strange thing happened. A storm was happening in Rio, and my students were not able to come to watch the class. No? So one of them asked me if he could attend the class through Skype, that internet connection. He said, okay, it's not the best, but you do that, you know. And he was living very far away from my house, so for him it was very good. He was very happy. And on the second day, there was no storm, but he said, teacher, I'm with you the weekends, we travel together. Would you mind that I watch from my home? Because it's like 2 hours of my life that I'm gaining because 2 hours of traffic, one to come and one to go back. And I said, yes, okay. And like that, slowly everybody went home and nobody was there anymore. And there was even a day that even live, you know, nobody was there. They want to see the recording. Then I said, no, that's too much. I'm not going to give a class like this. At least one person should be there and the others watching the recording. I would accept them. And slowly I started to test what would work, what would not work. And today I understand that what the strongest part of using the internet is to understand that there is a person on the other side talking to me. And that the class is for me, is not a recorded class that's there somewhere. And the teacher is looking into my eyes because he's seeing my camera and I'm seeing him. And that this is not a definite relation, you know, it's just a step. So what we do is here in Brazil is we have, let's say, online classes together with retreats. So on the online classes, you can study during your daily life because it will not compromise your agenda, but you have to set a time where you're going to be with the teacher for some time. And then it's much better than seeing the person once a week for 1 hour, you know, because I'm with him like one weekend. And we have a lot of free time, organic time, where we can just be free with no commercial relation. And that's a big thing because in the West, you know, there is not this Dakshina donation, let's say, habit. So if you don't charge for a class, you won't survive. People won't give you food and saying, Vedanta teacher, please give me, nobody will give anything, you know. So we have like a suggested fee for the class and the minimum that we fix. So we fixed that for the online class. And then the retreats were all free. And suddenly we had some energy that was somehow hidden inside of us that was like this. I have a time with my teacher that it's just free time where we will have some classes and we will do some other practice also, like we will do meditations, we will go to waterfalls, just do some parikramas, sometimes even go into the ice, you know. And this type of practice for the Western mind was like a hit, you know. People were waiting for that. Everybody wants to have a spiritual path here, but they are very afraid of many things. First, the idea that I'm going to sit with during 1 hour with somebody and gather knowledge, somehow we know it's not true, you know. We need to have this living experience. So we have to provide that. It's the first thing. The second is that, like India in the Vedic culture is very strong and it's a very beautiful culture, and all the, let's say, the religious side of it supports self-knowledge and everything. But in the West, it's not like this. The religions and everything, they don't really support self-knowledge. It's more like self-escravization. So people, they don't want to listen the word religion, you know. So we have to make like a very clear distinction between what is self-knowledge, what is Hindu religion, and what is a religion. And make them understand that they don't need to change religions or anything like that, because self-knowledge is not about being in a new religion. Although many people will think like this, even mostly Indians, because they receive self-knowledge through a beautiful religion, but here in the West, there is nothing like that. So of course, many students will end up in Hinduism because they feel like, or maybe like myself, because of a previous life connection, I just think that that's my way of going. But this is my way. And I have many different students in my classes learning from the Vedas, praying, being respectful and everything, but not necessarily being a Hindu. And when we create that, this freedom spirit, let's say, that's behind the process of studying and knowing oneself, makes the whole magic happen on this religious side. Also because we know that Hinduism is not a religion in itself. Actually, before the English came to India, nobody would call themselves Hindus, you know. They were just people, normal people praying, you know, and people pray on their houses and everything. In the West, it's not like this. If people want to pray, they need a religion and go to a place to pray, you know. So we have to adapt the understanding, because what a religion means in India is not the same as a religion means in the West. And if you say religion in the West, basically you are saying esclavization. So how to present something that is not like this, but people think it is, that's a big challenge. So you have to first take the religion out, then explain what the religion was supposed to be, and then show that Hinduism is a way, but he really does not need any intermediary between him and God, you know? So wherever you feel that is your way, please do it and be happy. That's the only thing that we are worried here, is your happiness, your well-being. And if these symbols will help you, perfect, use it. If they won't help you, don't use it. Very practical, objective, you know? And interestingly, the word for soul in Portuguese is alma. Né? And this alma is almost like atma. If you cut the L, you know, and make a T, it becomes atma. So people get very confused because they read almost the same word. If you do like this, it becomes atma. And then they start to think that alma and atma is the same thing, like the soul and what we call atma is the same thing. So many interesting connections make people really curious about what all this is about. And nobody knows what is the soul here. So we can explain what is atma, and the person can decide if this is the soul or not. It's a matter for him. So it's a very open way of speaking and bringing back a freedom to speak about religious issues that are very strong here, you know. Many people question me, why do you use this clothes? Well, South Indian clothes where I studied. That's the way. If I practice karate, I will use a kimono. If I practice kung fu, there is a uniform. If I study Vedanta, this is my clothes, and this does not make me special. It's just a cloth. You can use it, you can buy it and use it, you know. And people will ask, but teacher, you have no hair. Why now you have hair? Because they are afraid, you know, afraid of forms. There is not that freedom that you see in India, you know. Some people with no hair, some people with a lot of hair, some people with green hair. Everything is happening, you know. Everybody's free, but here is not like that. If my teacher does not have hair, maybe I should shave my hair, you know. People think like this. And I said, no, my hair is big. Actually, it's true. I just left my hair to grow because of the COVID. It's like a mourning, no? They say, because many people have died here in my family and other people. So it's like of respect. It's part of our culture, you know. And like that, we explain to people when we break these cultural obstacles that, you know, don't allow them to listen. Because once they listen to Vedanta, everything goes. But we have to open the channel. So they understand the living with the teacher process. They understand that it's not a religion, it's bigger than a religion. And then there is a third obstacle that's like this. Many think here that a spiritual pursuit is opposed to a life pursuit or a material pursuit, thinking that you have to choose, or you go for a life of like worldly pleasures, or you go to a life of spiritual practices, you know. And this was basically made because in our culture, when a person decides to be, let's say, a spiritual practitioner, he chooses maybe to be a monk or something like this. And actually, there are many monks that study Vedanta because here in Brazil, you know, a monk is not necessarily a fanatic person, you know. It's just a person that does not have an option and does not agree with society. It's a little bit different. So we have to be very open-minded, you know. So suddenly we start to understand that the spiritual life, it's what will make my material life better. And it starts like that. I want to have a nice family. I want to be able to, you know, to deal with my issues in life and be strong, be happy, be healthy. And what is missing is the spiritual part of my life. So we start to change the idea that you need to start a spiritual pursuit that is opposed to my actual life, to my spiritual pursuit should be part of my life. And when this happens, it's very interesting because life itself becomes a school. So you start to understand about, you know, non-violence maybe, and then you bring that to your life, to your family, to your work. Everything start connecting, you know. So people drop that idea that, oh, one day I will study Vedanta. You know, when the day that I am, I would say, retired, and I will travel to Tibet. And in Tibet, I will meet a monk in a cave, and there I will live only having tea, you know, and with a life of tapas, I will understand the absolute, you know. These fantasies with what people have here, you know. So suddenly when you say, oh, you are a Vedanta teacher? Yes, I am. You have a child? Yes, I have a child. So what's the problem? Also, my teacher, Gloria, she had many children. And she's a wonderful teacher. Actually, Yagnavalkya also have. And actually, many rishis in the Upanishads, they were teaching their children. So what's the problem? No, the problem is that if you are in a spiritual life, you should only maybe wear orange and do this and do that and do this. But this is not about what a spiritual life is. Spiritual life is not about using orange. Spiritual life is about being healthy, you know, and being able to talk and to live a good life, to help other people, to contribute to other people's lives. And who am I, or who is you, who are you, to decide if my life should be like this or like that? Does not make any sense. I met many people in India using orange that should not be using orange. It's true. I met many people in Brazil using maybe normal clothes that are real sannyasis. So, what is about the color of the cloth? Where you live? If you if you are young, if you are old, if you are a man, if you are a woman, nothing this really matter, you know. Nothing really matter. If you're talking about self-knowledge, about who are you, then all your history actually does not matter. Not the gender of the body, your age, if you have gray hair, white hair, black hair, if you are white in color, black in color, does not matter. This is all social issues that we have to deal with that and be very, let's say, caring and responsible and everything. But when it comes to self-knowledge, it's about losing our self-identity. And to lose my self-identity, basically, I have to accept and embrace all my past, all the plans for future, leave it to Ishvara, put in the order's hand, you know, and let things go. So like that, I've been doing for the past 7 years. And it was some on the middle of this process, I decided that we should actually show people what Vedanta is more clearly, because you know people only know astrology, Ayurveda, as I was talking. So we start to do free online classes. We already had our students, so we were like surviving, we were healthy, and say let's do free classes so that people can join. And these free classes in YouTube and other media that we send, they just reached like hundreds of thousands of people. And it was like a very strong and movement that happened here. We had some meditation exercises, remembering Puja Swamiji words. I said, okay, let's do a meditation exercise. We had some meditation exercise for almost 4 weeks with 5,000 people starting at 7:00 a.m. Imagine. In Brazil, this was like impossible. Like, and many teachers came to me when I was starting and said, don't even try. It's not going to happen. In Brazil, it's not possible. This and that. But actually, after that, all this boom, we could invite Swami Sakshat Kridananda Ji, that's our teacher there in Rishikesh now. And he came and stayed with us for some time and taught the students and everybody. And then he said, I don't know how many Indians have been born in Brazil. They're not Indians, they're Brazilians, you know. We are just people. And there are a lot of mumukshus here, you know. It's true. This is not a common land, you know. Brazil is not a common land, and we should know that. It's like India. India is like Punya Bhumi. You know, you have been born there, you have a lot of Punya, you are in a Vedic tradition and everything. But let me tell you one thing, you know, this is also Punya Bhumi in a different sense, you know. For example, here, let's suppose a person is from Russia, you know. If he's born in Brazil, he knows how to dance. Does not matter why, you know, from where he comes from. If the son is born in Brazil, he dances. If the person is born in Brazil, he's warm. He's able to feel and express his emotions, to cry, to embrace, to touch each other. It's like being a pack of wolves, you know. Everybody here is warm, touchy. And people think that this is because of some sort of sexual disorientation that people have, you know. It's not true. People here are free, because here we have like the last groups, we can say, in the world that has never seen the modern society. We have tribes here that have never seen the modern society living here. We have the big forest in the world. In every place in this country, when people are born here, they are, let's say, that they have a tendency to be very open on their emotions and their thoughts. It's impossible to give a rule to a Brazilian. Impossible. If you say in the airport, you do like this and pay the taxes, nobody do. Even the person in the tax counter will tell you how to go away and don't pay the tax, you know, because we cannot deal with rules, we cannot deal with anything of that. It's a free country, you know, but free in another sense. We don't have the spiritual legacy of India, but we have a free heart. We have a tribal, let's say, legacy, you know. And on this tribal legacy, when the Vedic tradition came, it was just like a boom. Suddenly everybody was saying, wow, This is always what I've heard about, what my grandmother would talk about, what I would think about, but there was nobody to teach, you know. And like that, suddenly Brazil became a boom. On these 7 years, we had more than 150,000 students on these courses. And they are not free courses, you know, on YouTube. Courses that people really go, subscribe, enter, they have to interact. Imagine that. It's like unimaginable for our Indian reality or the West reality. It's unimaginable. And all that was possible because of this Puja Swamiji blessings. That's how I feel. And also this Gloria Ji, this teacher that came before me, my teacher also, that did like all this, let's say, fertilizing the land, you know, for 20, 30 years, she's here spreading Vedanta and yoga. And suddenly we had like a big net of people ready to go ahead, to go to these retreats. And also when we open our minds for what self-knowledge really is, nothing is against it. Anything that will help us, a human being, you know, it's going to help you in your self-knowledge pursuit. So suddenly, all the medicine men from the forest becomes very valuable. We start to understand what they are telling. All the people that do all this, let's say, tribal dance work, they start to have a value in our lives because it shows us certain things. And all the therapies and everything that is available here suddenly gain a new light, you know, a light now that's not more opposed to self-knowledge. And taking resources with all of that, let's say the maturity process becomes very faster. So it's true in terms of emotional maturity, we don't have the same structure that we can see in the Vedic culture. It's a pity, but it's how our country is and how the West is. But we have a lot of tools to make this pain go away, you know? And if we are like really ready to use these tools, nothing can stop us. Nothing can stop us. That's how I feel, you know? So that has been like my mission, let's say like this, and following what Puja Swamiji has told me to do. He told me that in the first 5 years I will be traveling a lot, and that's actually exactly what happened. I traveled almost all my weekends, even in weekdays, and suddenly, because of this pandemic situation, and also because it does not have this need anymore, because too many people are there, we are now building a Gurukulam here next to Rio de Janeiro, where I feel that people would be able to do more advanced studies and stay for a longer time and all that. I still have to go further on this meditation process because that was the orientation of Puja Swamiji. But I really feel that it's a new phase that is coming. And maybe this meditation will have a connection to this, let's say, to this pain and this emotional situation that we are living right now that's very sad here in the West, and I know in India also has been hard. So that's how I feel, is that now it will be a moment where we can start to help people to heal themselves from all this pain that is happening. And many of them will become Vedanta students and want to learn more about this tradition. So once they discover what is Vedanta, what is self-knowledge, what really means this Atma Jnanam, like to understand what is the subject behind all the experience that we have, then everything goes into place. They understand the Vedic culture, some will wear dhoti, some will be interested in doing puja, some will do japa, but all of them will have a great respect and, let's say, some sort of thankfulness, you know, for this Vedic tradition, also to India being the mother of all Punya Bhumi. So that's what I have to share with you. I hope you have enjoyed and gave some insights in your own path. Om Purnamadav Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Harihi Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Harihi Om.
Thank you very much, Jonas Ji, for telling us how wonderfully you have taken this knowledge to the free people of Brazil. You know, in their hearts, freedom. This freedom resonates with them because they're already free-minded. So it's a revelation to us, because we always, as you said, consider India as Bhumi. But really, the land which has Amazon in it cannot be anything but Punya Bhumi. It is definitely Punya Bhumi. So that was a wonderful session. We have, of course, some questions, and we will take. Okay, Mahesh Aswani has a question. That is, how can one overcome pain and trauma of COVID through the knowledge of Atman?
The knowledge of Atman is not going to make you overcome the pain straight away, you know. Knowledge of Atman will show you that the pain is smaller than you. That's what's going to show. And actually that you are different from the pain, and actually different from anything that you can experience, you know. But we can say that the knowledge of Atma has a dynamic understanding also. This is like maybe the intellectual understanding, but the dynamic understanding of this being free is your capacity to love, you know. And actually, I am so capable of love that I'm capable of loving myself, and more than all the pain that I've had in my life. I'm capable of loving myself more than all the pain that I had in my life. And actually, I'm able to love myself more than all the pain that every person on earth had in his life. Because this love, this unconditional love that I have towards myself, it's so huge and it's so amazing. And it's just like a connection with straight with Ishvara, understand? That this dynamic expression of who am I, that's called love, it's able to heal anything. So it's just about connecting with that force, you know, and letting the force make this job done for you.
There's one more question from Anjan Nandi, and he wants to know, does Brazil have this oneness spirit in its traditional way of living? I mean, does their living reflect that spirit of oneness?
No, there is not understanding of oneness like spread in the culture. We have an understanding of what is surrendering, what is being honest, what is being real, what is being truthful. So it's like the qualities of the mind are like available, you know, but not that the qualities are there, they are available. You have to tap into it and make them grow. That's where we start here in general. And then we have to learn about the oneness. So in the beginning, people here think that I'm one thing, God is one thing, the world is another thing. This is where we start.
Explain that, of course, that when you also taught people, you were taking issues like Vedanta and emotions, Vedanta and relationships, how Vedanta helps to manage these issues of people. And that's like the doorway to kind of enter Vedantic teaching and learning. Traditionally, Vedanta also has a teaching tradition. You know, there's a certain method in which this knowledge is taught. How do you expose serious seekers to this knowledge then?
Yeah. So being a traditional teacher, having studied the whole process with Puja Swamiji and with my teacher in Brazil a couple of times, we can understand what is the heart, the principle. For example, everything starts with Purushartha Nishchaya, making the person understand what's the purpose of life. And it does not matter if I start speaking about their children, their emotions, or whatever, their mission, their legacy, their pain. If I give them Purushartha Nishchaya, as a result of the lecture, it will work, you know. After Purushartha Nishchaya, in general, we go for something like, let's understand what are the traps of the mind, or what are the qualities that the mind needs to have, so that when we start Nitya Nitya Vastu Viveka and all the things, that will work, you know. So let's suppose I start to speak about how to have a healthy relationship. Then I will bring all these topics, all the qualities of mind, Shama, Dhamma, Uparama, and everything inside this topic, as if I was like using it as an excuse to talk about what has to be talked about, you know. And in general, I stop giving the message of Vedantas. Like if I was giving a very short Tattva Bodha for someone, if you know Vedanta, you know what I'm speaking about, a very short Tattva Bodha of 3-4 days, but mixing this subject with other subjects. And then naturally, if they are interested in Vedanta, they will understand that there's something more. And then the traditional study will start from zero, you know. So then I say, okay, let's start a regular class. Let's open, I have here on my side, Tattva Bodha, you know, and from the first verse, Vasudevendra Yogindram Natvar, and then it starts everything from scratch. So it's like having an introduction for a bigger process that they are not used to and they cannot desire unless they are introduced to it, you know.
Mahesh has a question: how to overcome Sorry, I know that the question is how to overcome ego.
Oh, that's a difficult question, because it's the ego that is questioning. So when we want to understand how to overcome ego, we need to understand that there always will be the need of an external help, because of this situation that the ego itself is trying to answer, to find the answer. Whatever he chooses for himself could be a trap. So the best advice on this sense is to have a teacher or a guru, or however you want to call it, and be part of a tradition and be part of a group, because being part of a group, having other people, you can understand when you are not in the Dharma, you know, and then the ego will stay there.
To be successful is a very important value in modern times. How does the knowledge of Vedanta help us reconcile or attain this success?
This is a very important question for the West mind, you know. So it's basically understanding the purpose of success. So in the beginning, when we are like starting our career or life, success is just like, let's say, an outdoor shining that we should go in that direction. We know something is good is there. We are going to earn money, fame, recognition whenever we want, you know. But after time passes and we start to live our lives, the idea of success starts to be rewrite. So we will see that success is not necessarily earning a lot of money, but maybe knowing to do our job well and being connected to the people we are helping. And sometimes maybe we have a children and we understand that the success of our life will depend on that children growing well and educated and everything with love. So the idea of success will change. But what happened is that in general, the ego does not change in the process. So I still want the success to become, let's say, a successful person and to be able to, let's neutralize emotions and problems that I carry inside myself. So that's the place where we should make a shift, you know. So if I have everything I need to live a happy life, let's say I have enough for shelter, for food, for health, and for the people around me, and still I'm, let's say, gaining money, earning fame. So these things that I'm earning they are not for me, you know. And this is where we can make a big shift. If it's not for me, it means that this is something that's coming for me to help others. And then there is a meaningful change in our minds, because suddenly the success becomes, okay, you know, because it's not more an ego pursuit to become more powerful or whatever, to fly in helicopters, you understand? It's just a matter, if I have more resources, I can help more people. And it's good that good people have the resources, because if the good people have no resources, it means that the bad people will have the resources. And the society will be what we have now, a capitalist system, you know? So we need that good people are successful so that society will run well, you know? So like that, we should understand success as Lakshmi. And the energy of Lakshmi should be flowing in the right direction. And when it comes for us, we should be prepared to do that, you know?
Thank you very much for that. You made an observation in your talk that many teachers in the ancient Vedic tradition were also householders. They taught their children this knowledge. But today somehow we have come to associate Advaita Vedanta knowledge with sannyasis, and we think only they can teach, or any serious seeker has to be a sannyasi. How valid is this modern approach?
Well, I will tell what is in my range, because I'm not a sannyasi. But what I can tell is that a sannyasi is a symbol of maturity. It should be a symbol of maturity in life. And it all started because on the fourth ashrama, the fourth phase of life, everybody would have this disposition of a sannyasi mind where, let's say, the material pursuits and the relationships, nothing has more any importance, only the spiritual side of life. So looking on this angle, sannyasi is something very healthy and that should be there in society and everything. But also, if we think about the structure of society on those times, you know, everybody would become a sannyasi one day. Nobody would be longing for it, because it means you're closer to death, you know. So it's a phase of life that everybody will go. If you look a person in orange or in ochre robes, because not orange actually, it's ochre robes, you will understand that it's a person that just is living with that, you know. But for example, if you go to the West here where we are, and a person walks in orange in the street, he's not going to be a simple person. He's going to be like the main person of the street, walking like if it has a pineapple on his head, you know, because it's not part of the culture. So if a person walks like this, he's not becoming invisible. He's actually doing the opposite. So if a person wants to live a sannyasi life in Brazil or in the West, he would probably have to use a jeans, a white shirt, the same clothes, and live a calmly and secret life, you know, no social media, no this and that, you know. This is really a sannyasi, no relation to anybody. So if I put an orange, live in the West, and have a Facebook, you know, so then suddenly I'm not anymore, let's say, in a reclusion, you know. I'm just inside a society with a clothes that makes me different. But that was not what it was meant for many years ago. It's just about like being with yourself and following your own path and being an inspiration for others, you know. So I think it makes a lot of sense in the West, in the East, you know, to become a sannyasi. It can be very meaningful and everything. In the West, it's not the same. Actually, one of the great teachers we have, Paramarthananda Ji, he advised me when I was not sure if I was going to be a householder or a sannyasi. He told me, Vishwanatha, if you want to become a sannyasi, you may consider not using orange. Maybe there is a provision on the Vedas that say like this: you can choose any clothes you want and use always the same clothes, and some clothes that's not going to make you pop up in the society, you know. So about sannyasa, that's my understanding. And I cannot tell much more because I'm not a sannyasi, so it's difficult for me to tell that. What I can tell is about being a household. And what I can tell is that, for example, I have a daughter, and she is a blessing for me, you know, in many sense of my own maturity, my own process. I learn a lot from her. It's not a burden, you know. I have a wife, and I learn from her. We exchange a lot between us, and it's a person where I have a confidence, emotional confidence, so important for me in my life, you know. So I don't see as something that go against spirituality. And actually, let me tell you the truth. In the West, if you look for all the medicine men and all the people, the spiritual people, they all have normal lives. It's not a matter if you are married or not. It's just your choice, you know. And even we can say now, we should say that you can be married and you can also be gay. This happened here in the West, and what's the problem? Who has something to do with what you want to do with your sexuality? As long as you are happy and helping the society, I think we should have an open mind for that also, you know.
What are the specific practices that you would recommend for people to attain purification of mind, which is an important requirement to assimilate this knowledge?
That's a very good question also, because it's something that we can all do. No? So I think first we should check our values, you know, the way we relate to ourselves, our family, the close people around us. It's very common in the West. We have, like, for example, a person is a yoga teacher, and when he relates with people, he's always fighting, you know, he's engaged in hurting others, and that's not possible, you know, that does not make sense. As a person, we should be consistent, you know. So it does not seem to be a spiritual sadhana in the first place, but when we see that we are not able to do what we are supposed to do, then we have to be very serious about it, you know, so to build a strong value system for ourselves. The second is that there is always a good practice of meditation and japa that always help, like Om Namah Shivaya and some simple mantras that we can just repeat and understand in our heart the process that we should go. And if we do that, like, sincerely, truthfully, of course, the teacher will come, the tradition will come to help you. Once you have a teacher, follow the teacher. Before you have a teacher, follow your heart and pray.
Wonderful. That was very valuable. I think one of the students is asking if you can share your email address in the chat group, so that in case they want to be in touch with you, they would like to have your email address.
Ok. Você pode escrever? I will ask one of the team people to write here in the comments.
Okay, sure. That's fine. And you're also mentioning that one of the challenges for foreigners seeking Vedanta is those cultural barriers. You know, like, we have to dress in a certain way, we have to look in a certain way, we have to eat a certain food. Somehow we get stuck with that. How do you ask students to overcome this, you see?
Well, I let them understand these values more naturally, you know, like not as an obligation, but as something that is natural. For example, I am a vegetarian since the first time I met my first Vedanta teacher when I was still in Brazil. Before going to India, I met him, and I don't know why, I just became vegetarian on that day. It was like a previous life, you know, connection. I could not eat anymore any meat or chicken or anything, you know. But at the same time, I understand that this was what happened to me, but does not mean it's going to happen to another person, you know. And if somebody asks me why you did that, I don't know why, but I can understand the impact that this had in my mind and my body, and also the connection with all the Buddhas, all the animals, and everything that is here in this universe, and doing something for them with my life. It seems right to me, you know. If it seems right to you, can also do, you know. But no obligation. I'm not going to condemn you or love you more if you do. It's just maybe our dharma, and we have to discover it from inside, you know. A gente tem que dar um enter.
Can you share something about the books that you have written on yoga and Vedanta for our readers, and what are these books about, and anything from there?
Okay. I've written 2 books initially. One book was with questions from Western people that were wanting to know like basic spiritual questions that call it the fundamentals of yoga. And then another one named Yoga and Vedanta, that were some questions that happened after I came back to Brazil. So these 2 books are books of questions. Then I'm doing now a new series of books that it's called the Wisdom of the Masters, where I take different inspiration in different texts of Vedanta, but speak freely and with this approach more connected to the Western mind, more related to the practical life, you know. So one of them is called the Lotus Feet, and the other one, the Mask and the Flute, about Shri Krishna. Yeah. We're also translating the Gita this year. Probably we are going to finish. Yeah.
Wonderful. And okay, for the benefit of our viewers, Jonas Ji has given his email address. It is diretoria@vedanta.life. It's there in the chat group. So if you are interested, you can get in touch with him and ask any further questions that you have, or anything you want to learn from him also. Do you also teach in English, or is it only in Portuguese that you teach? What is your mode of instruction?
I'm teaching in English for small groups, since I don't have a huge audience in English. So whenever I have some few people, we just set a small course, like 3-4 days, and then I give a small talk like that. Yeah. But I'm a Western teacher, so you should understand that and have a patience with me, because it's not the same way you have received in India, and so I'm sure you also have great teachers there. So.
Thank you so much, Jonas Ji. You are an inspiration to all of us, that this knowledge, how it has to be approached without the so-called obstacles. You know, you're a living example of that any identity should not be an obstacle for us, and it should help us this knowledge. That is wonderful. And because of masters like you, this knowledge is becoming accessible to more and more people. So once again, we're very grateful for Advaita Academy for inviting you in this lecture series. Thank you so much. We have, of course, we have more programs for the rest of the month. And we have tomorrow morning at 7 a.m. India time, we have gleanings from Shankara's Sanat Sujatiya Bhashya. So the Professor V. Krishnamurti will be giving this talk. So please do tune in and listen. I have some other announcements also to make. We have a Indica course called How to Attain Moksha, which is going to be taken by K. Kadiresan. This runs from June 17th to July 29th, every Thursday, 6:30 p.m. to 8:30 p.m. India time. So please register for this. There are only limited seats available. There's one more announcement that we have, which is that Indic Academy's Indic Renaissance Fund is pleased to announce a scholarship scheme to 6 sadhakas for 50% of the fees payable for Chinmaya Mission's Vedanta Sadhaka course. It's a 1-year residential course. So those of you who are interested in attending the course can directly apply and indicate your interest in the scholarship. A video will play at the end of this program, and you can get more details from this. So once again, thank you very much for coming and listening to this talk. See you tomorrow morning. Namaste.
Thank you very much.